Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear friends. Allah bless you all. Let's continue our look at Surah al-Tawba, inshallah. Okay. Al-Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة تفرحه وتسعده وترضيه واجزه بها عنا ما هو أهله يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم زدنا ولا تنقصنا وأكرمنا ولا تهنا وأعطنا ولا تحرمنا وآثرنا ولا تؤثر علينا وأرضنا وارض عنا يا كريم. So, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, we've been looking at the munafiqun, how they've been around the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam compared to how they should have been, how they were with the Sahaba, and Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala now, after highlighting many of their deficiencies and faults and flaws and bad etiquette and just outright sins and turning away from Him, He now addresses them directly, which is, as Abu Saud says, tashdeed, really heightening the criticism that's been leveled against them. And it's also to make them, to shake them up a bit. As the general way of motivating human beings is either with a stick or a carrot. And those who have an inclination or they're already doing things that are good, then the targheeb, the carrot basically, the enticement and encouragement is what helps them advance further. But then those who are stuck, and keeping themselves stuck, we should say, in sins and turning away from Allah, then a bit of a shake-up helps, and so this is what's happened here. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them this forceful reminder now so that it moves them, maybe it will stir something in them and and make them reflect and think about how they are. So it says, كالذين من قبلكم كانوا أشد منكم قوة وأكثر أموالا وأولادا. You hypocrites are like those disbelievers before you. They were far superior to you in might and more abundant in wealth and children. Did that help them? No. فاستمتعوا بخلاقهم فاستمتعتم بخلاقكم كما استمتع الذين من قبلكم بخلاقهم. Beautiful. And they enjoyed their share of this life, and you have enjoyed your share just as they enjoyed their share of this life. It's expanded in the Arabic, there's a lot of bust. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't keeping it, it's brief, but He's keeping it brief in a way that's not as concise as it could be. We'll see why. وَخُضْتُمْ كَالَّذِي خَاضُوا, and you have engaged in idle talk just as they did. Okay. So the first thing he says is كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. You're saying to the munafiqun, you're just like the disbelievers who were just before you. We've seen this thing before, in the past, about just before, it's a successive chain. And although these people who, the case studies we're going to get, some were dating back to, some of the very first people on the planet. It shows this common theme. When people veer, when people turn away from God and His messengers and His revelation, you get common patterns occurring. So that's why he's saying it's like you're all one group. They came just before you, so it's like you've copied their homework. Basically, you've seen how they behaved, and you're behaving like this. Stop, think, look how they ended up. And one of the major faults a person can develop in this life is to turn away from God, to turn away from the afterlife, knowing that there's an afterlife, knowing that there's a judgment and there are consequences to what a person does, yet a person neglects them. Nasullaha fanasiyahum, as we saw in a few sessions ago, where he said that they forgot Allah, so He forgot them. So this is something that's become rooted in them. So Allah is shaking them up, don't be like this, right? Why? Because they come to the dunya, and as we said, the dunya, the closest place, it's here, it's right here in front of them. They can touch it, they can sense it, and the akhirah is a bit further away. And I mean, it's that. It's that intelligence test, isn't it? Not IQ, but actual intelligence, where when you ask someone, do you want one cookie now or five later on, five, in 3 hours? And most people, well, not most people, a lot of people will just jump out, no, one now, just instant gratification. But that's not intelligence. The intelligence is to control yourself for later, and you'll get much more later. Right, that gratification. Not only do you get more, but those who want to the instant gratification will look at you later, and then they'll wish, oh no, I wish I had it now. It's the same thing with the akhirah, right? And so he says, those people, do you think things are going to go different for you than they went for them? كانوا أشد منكم قوة. Very strong way. He could have said كانوا أقوى منكم. They were stronger than you. But he says they were more intense than you in strength. So it's a very, really highlighting the difference. He's speaking to the munafiqeen in Medina and elsewhere, and saying, look at you, look how you are. And you're disbelievers just like, look at Fir'aun and his people. Look at the pyramids they built, the Sphinx they carved. All of these things, they were achievements, right? And and if you're talking down to strength on the physical level, you have like the people of Ad. Kanu ashad, they were much stronger, larger bodies. And what did that help them? So if you don't have that strength, what's going to happen to you if you keep going down the way they went? وَأَكْثَرَ أَمْوَالًا, and they were far richer. They had much more wealth, more abundant in wealth. So wealth as a means to protect yourself, be safe, deflect harm. It's not going to do anything. They had more وَأَوْلَادًا, and they had much more children. So what's going to happen to you? These people couldn't escape, despite their wealth, despite their strength, their wealth, and their children. They couldn't escape the punishment of God. What's going to happen to you? Think about it. So now he tells us what those people actually did. فَاسْتَمْتَعُوا بِخَلَاقِهِمْ فَاسْتَمْتَعْتُمْ بِخَلَاقِكُمْ كَمَا اسْتَمْتَعَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ بِخَلَاقِهِمْ. So the literal translation, so let me look at the words first. فَاسْتَمْتَعَ اسْتَمْتَعَ يَسْتَمْتِعُ, from mata', an enjoyment, no matter how good it is or how long, it's temporary. The akhirah isn't described as a mata', only the dunya is described as a mata'. And obviously the temporary nature of the dunya varies. For someone who lived during the time of Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, hundreds of years is still temporary. For someone who lives in our times, a few decades is still temporary. So no matter how long it is, it's ending. It's like you wouldn't go to a hotel and start making your life plans. Yeah, we'll have our first child, we'll put him in that corner, and if we have a girl, we'll make her a little kitchen in that corner. No, because you're there for a night, 2 nights, and then you're going. So it doesn't make sense to make long-term plans and to forget what's coming, neglect what's coming after. So this is what they were doing. So istimta', the word istaf'ala, means to do it as much as possible in this context. So he's saying that they enjoyed their khalaq. Khalaq, same word for khalq, to create, but to create according to a specific design, meaning there's a plan in there. So Allah had apportioned something for them. Now Allah had decreed they're going to get this much wealth or these things to enjoy in life. And these people went and they gave everything to that enjoyment. They enjoyed these things and spent their lives, their moments, everything about them was poured into having fun. That's what it was. They forgot what's coming. They neglected what's coming after. They didn't think about the akhirah. Allah's given us the dunya, and as many of the righteous have said, the dunya should be in your hand and not in your heart. Meaning, if you were to make a list of your priorities in life, Allah and His Messenger should be at the top of that list. Not the fancy house, or the fancy phone, or whatever it is that that motivates a person. You can have those things. If Allah gives you them, enjoy them, show gratitude for them. That's what it means by having it in your heart. You're using it as a means, right, to draw closer to Allah. Not that achieving this is the point of my existence, and then Allah being later down on the list. Oh yeah, maybe if I'll have time, I'll pray something in Ramadan or something. No, the focus, like the main thing, turn to Allah. This is what he's trying to say. Focus on the akhirah, right? And it doesn't mean neglecting this life, but that is a case of perspective, right? One cookie now, or 5 later. And so the khalaq is their particular share that's just for them, specified amount. Allah knows exactly what to give them, how much to give them, and it's given with the wisdom as well, the amount that's true. فَاسْتَمْتَعُوا بِخَلَاقِهِمْ. So they did as much as they could. They poured their very souls into enjoying the things of the dunya. Enjoyment of them is not a problem if it doesn't make you forget about God and distract you from God. But if it's going to make you distract you from God, or you're going to use it, or the enjoyment is going to be used to feed someone's ego and arrogance and the harm that they do on other people, then it's literally the worst thing that could happen. So he says, so let's look at it literally then. So they went to all lengths to enjoying their share. فَاسْتَمْتَعْتُمْ بِخَلَاقِكُمْ. And you have also gone to the extreme lengths to enjoying your share of this life. Just like كَمَا اسْتَمْتَعَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ بِخَلَاقِهِمْ. Just as those who were just before you, just as they went to extremes in enjoying their share. So it's not repetition, but it's explained in a very padded out way, we could say. And the reason behind this, as Imam Zamakhshari says, is that they enjoyed the things that they had of their hudur, their selfish desires and the interests of this life, and they were completely happy and pleased with them, in the sense that they thought, we don't need anything else, we don't need God, right? And they were completely distracted and lulled. They just didn't care about the akhirah. They didn't care about God's rights. They didn't care about looking at the end of what their affairs were, going around committing dhulm on people like Pharaoh, killing people, children and these sorts of things. And they didn't think about the judgment and that they're going to have to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's expressing it in this way, that they gave their all in trying to get the maximum amount of benefit from their whatever they were portioned in the dunya, instead of using it as a means to draw closer to Allah and gain benefit in the akhirah. It's their capital, right? And they wasted it, their lives and the opportunity, they wasted it. So Allah is saying that this activity that they were doing, He keeps repeating it, this activity they were doing was pointless, worthless. Like literally worthless. Like you give someone, you give a child a wad of money, notes, and he sticks some up his nose and some into his nappy, and he drools over some of the notes, and they're wet and they break apart, and he might vomit on some of the others, throw some around, whatever. That thing that had potential, look where it's ended up. So they spent everything in enjoying those things that could have been the means to them gaining much more in the akhirah. And so this is literally what they did. So, and then Allah is comparing the state of the munafiqun, the contemporaries of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and He applies to those after as well, that comparing their state to those people who have gone before, the disbelievers who went before, and look where they ended up, and you're acting like them, guess where you're going to go. Right? So just saying that you're like Fir'aun. You kill people who are innocent, they've committed no crime, and you kill them. You kill hundreds of thousands of people, you're not bothered. And look where he ended up, and you're going to go the same place, right? Because of your actions. So then he says, so they expended all effort in enjoying their their share of this life at the expense of the next, and you're doing the same just like they did. So you're just like they are. وَخُضْتُمْ كَالَّذِي خَاضُوا. And there's various ways of understanding this in Arabic. Some say the كَالَّذِي should have a noon and it's dropped and whatever. But the easiest way is you delved, you dived. So khawd, as we talked about last time, has a meaning of diving deep into something, right? And so here is talking about you delved into things that were wrong. You killed people, you betrayed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of the things that you weren't supposed to do, all the wrong and all the hawa, chasing your follies and all the delusions and all the crimes that you did, you dived just like their diving was. خُضْتُمْ كَالْخَوْضَ الَّذِي خَاضُوا. And that's the best i'rab, the taqdeer of the masdar kal-khawd alladhi khadu. So you dived into all these things. It's not just idle talk, it's actions. Actions that are wrong, actions that are vain, actions that are pointless, actions that are egotistical, and everything up away from what Allah wants us to be like, right? Wa khudtum kalladhi khadu. So he says, Ulaika, those people far distant from any sort of good. When you say Ulaika, every one of the particular qualities that has been mentioned before, it reintroduces them to your mind fresh. So he's saying, those people that have quality A, B, and C, as we just said, حَبِطَتْ أَعْمَالُهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. All of their deeds are void. Which deeds? It's the deeds that would normally you'd expect to get a reward for. Giving charity, raising an orphan, helping an old lady across the road. These sorts of things, acts that are universally recognized as good. No, we're not talking about their bad deeds. So, as you know, if a disbeliever accepts Islam, turns to God, then all the bad they've done is wiped away, and all the good they did is brought into Islam, and they're rewarded for it. So those potentially good and rewardable deeds are now effaced, wiped away, right? They're all null and void. However, we do know from other verses that any good that they do, Allah gives them, requites them for them in this life. And they'll have health, they'll have children, they'll have wealth, they'll have stability. All these blessings, it's a reward, quote unquote reward, for the good that they've done here, if they've done any, right? But if a reward for that, but it's also a means of taking them away from the akhirah, because as a punishment, because they never want to believe, then they get it all here. الدنيا سجن المؤمن وجنة الكافر, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This life is a prison of a believer and the paradise of the disbeliever. They get it all here, and this is where they want to distract themselves, so then later they don't get anything, right? A'udhu billah. So in the dunya, in this life, the life that's here, immediate, the closest thing, and in the akhirah, the afterlife. وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. And those people far distant from any sort of good, they are the real losers, right? Ta'rif al-juz'ain yufid al-hasr, that saying both things are definite. Ulaika, once again bringing to mind all of the previous qualities and the fact that they've lost out on the dunya and the akhirah. So those people that have these particular qualities, they are the true losers. You can say someone's lost out in this, someone's lost out in that, but in reality they haven't lost out unless they've lost out like these people, right? A'udhu billah. The ultimate loss, their capital, which was their lifespan, their opportunity to gain the pleasure of Allah and the rewards of the paradise and the akhirah, all of that wasted, and it's their own fault. Literally, it's their own fault. So then he says, ألم يأتهم نبأ الذين من قبلهم قوم نوح وعاد وثمود وقوم إبراهيم وأصحاب مدين والمؤتفكات. Have they not received the stories of those destroyed before them, the people of Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, the people of Ad, the people of Thamud, the people of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, the residents of Midian, and the overturned cities of Lot alayhi salatu wasalam. So he says, has it not come to them? So ya'ti is to come quickly. So these events are so significant. The destruction of Pharaoh, the destruction of Ad and Thamud. They were told, these were events that were regularly discussed. Like a child growing up in England, you will have known about the gunpowder plot. You'll have known about the bubonic plague. You'll have known about William the Conqueror. The Battle of Hastings. These sorts of things. You might not know a lot of detail, but you'll know that these events occurred because you hear it when you're growing up, right? And so they're told everywhere. So haven't these stories come to them? But it's not just stories. Naba, the significant news of those people who are before them. News that's so significant, it should make a dent, right, on their perception of the world. It should change them. It should make them think, what? Whoa, that we're going down the same path they went down. Look what happened to them. What if it happens to us? So it should make them think. And let's look at the question. Haven't those consequential, hasn't that consequential news about these people come to them yet? So it's like someone's looking at a group of people who are doing something wrong and saying, you know what? If they knew what other people suffered, and what they were punished with because they did the same thing these people are doing, if these people knew that, they'd stop. But then what happens? The news comes and they hear it and it doesn't affect them. So the same person would think like, haven't they heard that news? Like, did it just not come to them? Because I'm pretty sure any intelligent person would stop doing this, but they haven't. Right? So it's a very articulate and eloquent way of putting it. So have they not received the stories of those destroyed before them, the people of Nuh, with their long lifespans, right, close to a millennium, didn't help them. The people of Ad with their strength, right, strong bodies, and they were able to defeat others easily, and they were slashed from pillar to post, they were slammed from pillar to post when the winds came. And the people of Thamud carving homes out of rocks, not a small feat. The people of Ibrahim, the ruler in his time, Nimrod, and all of his dominion, and the Ashab al-Madian, these people with their achievements, and the Mu'tafikat, these few villages, around the Jordan Valley, where Sayyidina Lut alayhi salatu wasalam went, and they didn't listen, and they were flipped, literally. Mu'tafikat, what it means is something to be taken and then flipped upside down. And obviously then they were slammed down into the ground. And the people of Madian were destroyed by a scream from Sayyidina Jibreel. And haven't these stories come to them? Don't they know what happened to them? Aren't they worried it's going to happen to themselves? It's a really powerful message, if only someone would stop to think about it. And then he says, أَتَتْهُمْ رُسُلُهُمْ بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ, their messengers came to them with extremely clear proofs. فَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَظْلِمَهُمْ وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. Allah would have never wronged them, but it was they who wronged themselves. So he says, أَتَتْهُمْ, their messengers who had care and concern for them because they were from their tribes, and like Sayyidina Lut alayhi salatu wasalam, although he was from the tribe of Sayyidina Ibrahim, he married into those villages. And then so the atat, to come quickly, like yati. So this is the past tense, that their messengers came quickly to them, meaning their messengers came with with passion and a desire to help these people, guide them, take them out of the misguidance, stop them from doing all of the bad that they did. They came with bayinat, extremely clear proofs, things that anyone can see. Yes, that's the truth. This can't be anyone from anyone else but God. This is the truth. We should follow it. Right, like there's no shadow of a doubt. And the prophets came with all this desire and compassion for them, desire to help them, and compassion. Nothing changed though. So what happened is they were destroyed. And if you look at the way and the severity in which they were destroyed, if you didn't understand what had happened to them before, what they did before, if you didn't know all of that, you would assume they've been wronged. But knowing all of that, it's clear they weren't wrong. So Allah says, فَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَظْلِمَهُم. Allah would never, so this Lam al-Juhud, Allah would never wrong them. Allah doesn't do dhulm on anyone. Allah doesn't punish anyone without warning. Allah doesn't punish anyone without them knowing what's right and wrong. So He's saying Allah did not wrong. Allah would never wrong them. So what happened to them was not dhulm. وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا past tense, أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ, present tense, again and again and again, to show that they were constantly and permanently doing it. Again and again and again, doing the actions that would bring down punishment. It's clear. Look, for example, if it's known that for a person to carry a knife in his pocket, or in his coat pocket and walking around, is illegal, or a gun or something like this. And it's illegal in most places, right? But not everywhere. But anyway, let's say England, it's illegal to carry, and then he does it once and he gets caught and he gets arrested for it, and he does it again, and then a third time and a fourth time and a fifth time. Every time he gets caught in public with a weapon and he gets sent to prison. What are people going to conclude? That the judge and the court system is rigged? That they keep sending this poor man to prison? Right? No, they're going to say this person is bringing it on himself. Why does he keep doing the action that he knows will cause problems? He knows will cause him to be locked up. This is what they were doing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah would never ever wrong them, but they kept wronging themselves by doing the things that would bring about His punishment. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us. This is, this is something many people historically have fallen into, this mistake. The mistake of thinking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His revelation are inconsequential, and then they met the consequences in the worst possible way. A'udhu billah. So Allah protect us, and we ask Allah for guidance in this life and protection and His good pleasure and reward in the next. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.